Good afternoon, guys. It's Working, bringing you a quick update on Bitcoin. Hope you guys are having a wonderful afternoon. Sorry I haven't, guys, given you an update in the last week or so. It's been about 5 days or so since the last update. And to be fair, I've been a bit busy. Bitcoin really hasn't done much of anything. It's basically been consolidating sideways. There hasn't been much to update you on. But I wanted to make sure I got you out an update here because I remember last week on my last video, I told you that we would see resolution to this massive consolidation pattern that we've been in basically since June 26th. I told you last week that we'd very likely see resolution at the most within 3 weeks, but I told you very likely within a week. And it's been almost a week now, and we are coming up on that point here to where, depending on where you're drawing this, and let me just show you a couple different scenarios. Obviously, that we've been in this massive consolidation period that, as I said, since started in June the 26th, and we can see that we're in this overall massive wedge pattern. And of course, that symmetrical wedge is an equal opportunity breakout to the up or to the downside here. So you could make this case that we could potentially have another 2 weeks of consolidation, which would bring us right up to the apex. Now, we know that typically doesn't happen. Typically, you see a breakout before you reach the apex of any type of a wedge. So that would mean probably within another week, if not less than that. And to be fair, if I look at this, guys, a little bit differently, if I come in here and pull into the 4-hour, we can see that we're actually creating kind of a wedge within a wedge. In other words, we have this series of higher lows right here as well that's basically starting on August the 6th through today, and we're just wicking off the top of that here. So we kind of have this zooming back out, this wedge within a wedge. If we do break to the upside here, then that's going to keep us within the overall consolidation pattern that we've been in here of this overall larger wedge. However, if we do break to the downside, that's going to be a little bit different. If we do break to the downside, that's going to put us outside of both of these areas, or both of these, the larger wedge. That'll put us outside the larger wedge. Let's just keep it simple here. And of course, that will very, very likely take on a whole different life of its own. Of course, if we do break down below 9,950, I am going to, as I've these areas that I have marked off are the exact same areas I've had marked off for quite some time now, switching back here to the daily. So if we do break down below 9,950, I will expect a very quick drop down to about 9,400. And of course, below 9,400, guys, you guys know this area that I'm watching between 89 and 8,500. I would expect a drop. Now, it won't have to happen right away, but I would expect a nice, if we do break below 9,400, a nice steady drop down to at least 8,900, if not 8,500. And that's really going to be the area that I'm going to be looking at, the first area, I should say, that I'm going to be looking for a reversal. That's the area that I can see a potential bear trap. In other words, we break down, everybody starts going short, and then price turns around somewhere between 89 and 8,500. Because remember, if we do break down out of this, the measured move off of this is going to take us down to the low 7,000s, if not the upper 6,000s. So as soon as we break down out of this, everyone's going to be watching, around 7,000, even the mid to upper 6,000s. Everyone's going to be watching this area right down here. So, certainly you can see a bear trap where price comes down, traps everybody into a short position, and then reverse course. Instead of coming all the way down and following a measured move, it actually reverses course somewhere in here between 89 and 8,500, which, as you guys know, that's that major area on the CME chart. That's the gap on the CME chart that everyone and their brother has been watching. But of course, 8,500 is also very significant for numerous other reasons, as I pointed out in past videos that I'm not going to go over again today. So that's a very, very big area of interest. Now, does it have to reverse course at 89 to 8,500? Absolutely not. That's just the first area that I'm going to be watching for a potential reversal of course, and a potential breakdown, bear trap, and then reversing course, and then continuing back to the upside here, right around 89 to 8,500. To the upside, if we do break up, of course, I'm going to be watching 10,650 here. If that gets taken out, of course, we're going to be looking at 11,000. 11,000 would very likely break us to the top of our descending resistance line or the top of our overall symmetrical wedge that we've been watching. If we do break above 11,000, really 11,050, if we do break above 11,050, that's when we're going to officially will have broken out of the overall massive symmetrical wedge that we are in. And of course, if the first area I'm going to be watching is 11,500, but I think more than likely 12,000 would be a very logical target as soon as we do break out of this symmetrical wedge that we're in. If it's to the upside, 12,000 would be a very logical target to watch for your first area of interest. And of course, just like we could get a bear trap down here, I wouldn't be surprised as well to see a fake out to the upside, where price breaks to the upside, hits about 12,000, and then completely reverses course. It's not until we break 12,000 that I'll start looking for continuation to the upside, and of course that'll bring us up to 13,000 would be the first target after that, and then of course that gets broken. We're looking at taking out this prior high here. We're at around 13,850, if not much higher than that. But again, we're nowhere near there yet. As of right now, we're still consolidating sideways, still kind of within a wedge. I would expect resolution to be this first area of interest right in here. I would expect us to have resolution today or tomorrow. Now, it doesn't have to be a massive resolution. In other words, we don't have to have a massive break to the up or to the downside here. Again, this could just continue to move sideways, and if that does happen, then so be it. I just find it interesting that it does look like we are getting pressed tighter and tighter here. Again, kind of a wedge within a wedge. I wouldn't be surprised to see it kind of just completely take off out of here, either up or down, out of the overall symmetrical wedge pattern, the larger symmetrical wedge pattern that we're in. That being said, of course, it doesn't have to play out that way at all. All right, so zooming all the way in on the 4-hour here, guys. Zooming in on the 4-hour, it looks to me like price wants to come back up and test about 10,400-ish. In fact, it kind of looks like we're actually creating, let's see if this works out. Yeah, if I disregard this move here, which this was just a massive stop hunt. That was a couple days ago where we saw price go from about 9,800 all the way up to about 10,650 and basically test the top of our area of resistance that we've been watching for quite some time here. That was just a massive stop hunt and then basically returned back to baseline here. So we can see if I disregard that, we do have kind of a wedge within a wedge within a wedge. This area right here that we are approaching the apex of, and does look like Bitcoin may want to come up and test about 10,000, actually I'd say even lower than that, about 10,300-ish. And then it looks like we may want to see, some a pretty, not a large move, but relatively speaking, either a break up to 10,650 or a break back down here to about 10,000-ish, somewhere thereabouts here. It does look like we are going to, again, we very likely will see some resolution in the next day or two to this little micro pattern here. If it's a break to the downside, that could domino very quickly and go much lower. If it's a break to the upside here, then we may have, a little bit more time of moving sideways in the overall larger structure here. Now we'll have to wait and see kind of how it plays out. But I will say the volume signature is very, very interesting. Does look like this thing is getting ready to pop. Let me just pop on volume here very briefly. We can see that we are still creating, on volume, we are still creating a series of lower highs here. So again, this volume signature jives very, very nicely with the overall consolidation pattern of the lower highs, higher lows, and then eventual breakout. We are seeing, very, very good resolution between the two. So, this whole pattern does look like we will see resolution at the most in 2 weeks. I would say in a week or less, we should see some resolution to this. But at the most 2 weeks. So anyway, zooming in here to the 4-hour, how would I play this? Sorry guys, there we go. How would I play this here at the 4-hour? I wouldn't. I would just watch this very, very closely because again, we could see some very, very major move here in the next day or two, or if it does break to the upside, we could just see some more consolidation sideways. But I don't see a very, very good trade at the moment until we get outside of the overall larger wedge pattern that Bitcoin is currently trading in. Let's go ahead and look at some moving averages, exponential moving averages. This is on the daily. Daily, we can see the 821 and 55-day EMA are just getting squeezed tighter and tighter, almost literally right on top of one another. I said this last week that we have not seen the 821 and 55 this close to each other basically since the breakout right here in April the 2nd. This is the last time we saw the 821 and 55-day moving exponential moving average this close together, which again does suggest, I should say, a much larger move to come. We're also starting to see the daily Bollinger Bands start to constrict, starting to look like they're bottlenecking here. We're also seeing the 50 simple also coinciding with the 821 and 55-day EMA. So this is all screaming for a much larger move to come. Again, in the most 3 weeks, but I would say in a week or less. Let's go ahead and check the weekly. Looking at the weekly, we're basically consolidating right on top of the 8-week EMA. Not really any major break above or below. Of course, we closed below it last week, basically sitting right on top of it this week here. But again, not a major break, certainly not a decisive break, just basically more consolidation. I think this pattern has basically fooled, and I said this last week, and I'll say it again because it's even more true this week. This pattern has basically fooled the most bearish and the most bullish among us. In other words, the perma bulls and the perma bears have egg on their face. It's basically fooled both of them, and I think they're both trying to make their case. They're both trying to say, yeah, just more consolidation, man, and then we're going to the moon, or then we're dropping down to 2,000. It's coming. It's right around the corner. And of course, both of them have a very solid case. They really do. In one of the two are going to be right. Obviously, they've got a 50-50 shot, so they might as well stick with their positions at this point. One of the other is going to be right. Well, that's not necessarily true. We could drop down to about 8,000 and then continue to the upside. So it just really depends on your strategy. But I don't know anybody that thought this consolidation period was going to last 2 to 3 months like this. Maybe a few people, maybe some theories, but most people thought that we were going to break out of this very much sooner than we have, myself included, to be fair. But right now, I wouldn't be surprised if price does break down. Of course, we're going to be watching the 21-week EMA. Traditionally, that has acted as a very strong support. Wouldn't be surprised to see it act as support now. And as of right now, it's sitting at right around 9,000, just above 9,000. So, of course, we'll watch that area. That would jive nicely with our $8,900 area. And, of course, we can see it wick below there, possibly touch 8,500 and then continue to the upside. That's a real possibility. But there's no question that the 21-week EMA is a very, very relevant zone, and I will be watching that. If we do end up breaking down, I will be watching that area for potential support. Excuse me. Checking our daily volume, sitting at about, what do we got, 13.5 billion for the day. So yeah, I mean, everybody's just sitting around waiting for resolution on this thing, guys. They really are. This is just... yeah, I mean, this has gone on for much, much longer than I think anyone anticipated. And I would not be surprised to see some resolution on this probably at the most in a week. Actually, at the most in 2 weeks. I think it's going to happen in a week or less. I realize I said a week or less last week, and I was wrong on that. But I do think that there is going to be resolution onto this, very, very likely, and the most the next 7 days, I would say. It could go on 2 weeks, but I would say the most the next 7 days. Now, this area that I just marked off here, guys, this is a decent base that Bitcoin has put in here. We can see that it's a decent demand zone. In other words, we can see prices come down here and has been dancing on top of this zone basically ever since August the 15th. So basically the second half of August, we've just been dancing right on top of this area. So if this area does break, this would suggest a breakdown with a vengeance. As I said, I do think it happens very quickly. If it does break to the downside, I do think it happens very quickly. And I do think we find ourselves at 9,400 very quickly. I do think we bounce maybe once or twice off of 9,400, but I do think there's a good chance 9,400 will break, and then we'll find ourselves down to about 89 to 8,500 very, very, very quickly. To the upside, if we do break to the upside again, I'll be watching 10,650. I do think if we break to the upside, that'll very likely break if we test it again. We tested it back here on August 26th. I wouldn't be surprised to see that area break, and of course, then that'd be a very, very likely a very quick rise to about 11,050-ish, somewhere thereabouts, guys. And that's the area really that we're watching to take us outside of the overall massive ascending triangle, or excuse me, not ascending, sorry guys, I can't speak proper English here. The symmetrical wedge, that would take us outside. If we break above 10,000, or excuse me, 11,050, that would take us outside of the symmetrical wedge to the upside. And at that point, we're watching very likely 12,000, maybe 11,500, but I think if we do break to the upside, I think it's going to happen to where we break to at least 12,000, and that's the area that, as I said earlier, that we'll be watching for a potential bull trap. If we can get above 12,000, I do think we very likely continue to at least 13, and of course 13 is going to be a very pivotal area. It could also potentially be an area for a bull trap. If we do break above 13, then I'll be watching to take out the prior high, and that's between about, that's right around 13,850-ish, somewhere thereabouts. I realize it's frustrating to hear that, guys. I know you wanted to hear, we're breaking up, we're breaking down. I know you want to hear that, guys, and I wish I could tell you, with certainty which direction we're going. I would say right now, my bias would be a slight, as I said last time, a slight bias to the downside, but really, it's very, very difficult to call. It really, really is, guys. I mean, we've tested this area so many times down, this area of support so many times that, typically you tested this much, eventually it's going to break, right? Every time you test it, it gets weaker and weaker and weaker. That being said, Bitcoin has surprised us so many times. And if I look at the overall wedge pattern that we're in, guys, I just, until we break this pattern, guys. I mean, you could also make the case that we are still until the trend does shift, we are still on an uptrend. Of course, the probability favors the trend. So you could, again, it's frustrating for you. I know it's frustrating to hear, but I can make a good argument for the bulls. I can make a good argument for the bears. And until we break the overall consolidation pattern that we've been in here for quite some time, it's really just a waiting game. And again, I know how frustrating that is to hear, guys, but that's why that I make these videos to not BS you, and I'm not going to make something up. I'm not going to tell you we're going to the moon. I'm not going to tell you we're going down to $2,000. I'm going to tell you, exactly what I'm watching, guys. And small scalp trades here and there. If you wanted to get into a scalp right now, the targeting about 10,400. Yeah, I mean, you could make that case, but truth is, guys, this is a good time to sit on your hands, wait. We're going to get resolution here very, very soon. It's just a waiting game, guys, and there's no reason to risk too much capital, especially in a situation like this where it really could go either way. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things there. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, please let me know in the comment section below. As always, would appreciate an upvote. If you have enjoyed this content, guys, please remember to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell in the right-hand corner. Until next time, please trade safe. Take care of yourselves. This is Working. Signing out.